If magnesium is part of your nightly routine, there's a real chance it's interfering with your sleep instead of improving it. Not because magnesium is useless, but because one overlooked detail changes how the body responds to it at night. This is why some people fall asleep easily, yet wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning feeling alert instead of restored. The body won't fully relax, the legs stay tense, the chest feels awake, and the mind never fully powers down, even though nothing feels obviously wrong. Magnesium isn't a sleeping pill, it's a mineral, a responsible choice. So when sleep becomes lighter rather than deeper, the instinct is to blame stress, timing, or the idea that this is simply how sleep works later in life. What rarely gets explained is this: magnesium behaves differently at night than it does during the day. When it's taken the wrong way or at the wrong time, it can quietly interfere with the systems that are supposed to slow everything down for sleep. There's no warning signal, just a gradual shift toward broken, shallow rest. Falling asleep isn't the issue. Staying asleep is. Waking too early. Muscles that never fully let go. A nervous energy that lingers without a clear cause. That pattern doesn't feel dramatic at first, until it repeats, night after night. And that's exactly what happened to someone I want to tell you about. A few years ago, a patient of mine named Andrew came in with a concern I hear often. He wasn't sick. He wasn't in pain. He simply didn't feel rested anymore. Early 70s, calm, active, walking every morning, eating simply. No extreme habits, no shortcuts. There was one routine he had never questioned. Magnesium at night. Same time, same dose. For years, because that's what he had been told supports sleep. Yet his nights followed the same pattern. He would fall asleep easily, then wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning. Restless, alert. By morning, he felt functional, but never restored. What stood out was this: his labs were unremarkable. His medications hadn't changed. His lifestyle looked responsible. Nothing pointed to a clear problem. But when we slowed everything down and walked through his evening step by step, one small detail surfaced. It wasn't a disease. It wasn't a deficiency. It was a misunderstanding of how magnesium behaves at night. Once that detail changed, the pattern began to shift. And that's when the real issue became clear. It was never the magnesium itself. It was how and when it was being used. Here's what rarely gets explained clearly. A standard magnesium blood test only reflects what's circulating in the bloodstream at that moment. It does not show what's stored in muscle, nerve tissue, or bone, and the body will protect that blood level aggressively, even if it has to borrow magnesium from deeper reserves to keep the number looking normal. Think of it like a smoke detector. The alarm stays quiet, so everything seems fine. But behind the walls, something is slowly burning. Magnesium depletion works the same way. The test looks calm. The report says normal. Meanwhile, the real loss is happening where routine labs don't look. Over time, that borrowing takes a toll. Muscles stop fully relaxing. The nervous system becomes easier to overstimulate. Blood pressure loses its natural nighttime drop. Instead of downshifting after dark, the body stays slightly alert. The heart doesn't fully settle. Sleep becomes lighter, without an obvious cause. That's why people like Andrew are told nothing is wrong. There's no red flag on paper, no urgent diagnosis, just a body that's been compensating quietly for years. And by the time magnesium deficiency finally shows up on a lab report, the imbalance has already been shaping sleep and recovery for a long time. Which brings us to the real question. What is magnesium actually supposed to be doing while you sleep? At night, the body is meant to change gears, not suddenly, not by force. The nervous system eases out of alert mode and into recovery. Heart rate slows, muscles begin to release. Blood pressure naturally drifts downward. This is the parasympathetic system taking over. It's the body's internal signal that says, "You're safe. You can rest now." When that shift doesn't happen cleanly, sleep never becomes fully restorative, no matter how tired you feel. Magnesium plays a quiet but essential role in that transition. It helps the brain respond properly to GABA, the nervous system's primary calming signal. It allows muscle fibers to release instead of staying partially clenched through the night. It supports a steadier heart rhythm so the chest doesn't feel alert or reactive when the rest of the body is trying to slow down. Magnesium doesn't create sleep on its own. It creates the conditions that allow sleep to unfold naturally. This is where its role often gets misunderstood. Magnesium is not a sleeping pill. It doesn't shut the brain off or sedate the nervous system. What it does is reduce friction. It takes pressure off the pathways that keep the body on edge. When that pressure eases, the body stops resisting its own nighttime rhythm. Falling asleep feels less forced. Staying asleep feels less fragile. When magnesium is working the way it's meant to, the night feels quieter. The body doesn't keep checking for danger. Muscles don't hold unnecessary tension. The nervous system doesn't hover in a half-alert state. Instead of light, broken sleep, the body is able to settle into deeper cycles without interruption. The difference shows up in the morning. Waking feels calmer, not abrupt. Energy feels steadier instead of spiking and crashing. Joints and muscles feel less stiff. There's less of that low-grade inflammation sensation that makes the body feel older than it should. This is what restorative sleep looks like when magnesium is supporting the process rather than interfering with it. And this is exactly why using the wrong magnesium at night can quietly backfire. This is where the confusion really begins. Magnesium isn't a single ingredient with a single effect. It's a mineral bound to different carriers, and each one sends a different signal in the body. That signal matters a great deal at night. Some forms support energy and movement. Others stimulate digestion. Only a few support calm and recovery. When those roles get mixed up, sleep pays the price. Some magnesium forms are designed to support energy production. They work along pathways involved in ATP, the fuel your cells use to stay active. That's useful during the day, when you want muscles responsive and the brain alert. But at night, that same effect can feel like a low hum of stimulation. Not enough to keep you fully awake, but enough to prevent deep rest. The body stays halfway on when it should be powering down. Other forms act primarily in the digestive tract. They pull water into the intestines and encourage movement. That can be helpful earlier in the day, but it becomes a problem at night. Digestion is supposed to slow during sleep. When the gut becomes active instead, the nervous system gets pulled back into alert mode. That's why some people wake up uncomfortable, restless, or needing the bathroom, without ever suspecting their supplement. Then there are forms that interact more directly with the nervous system. These tend to support relaxation, muscle release, and smoother signaling between the brain and the body. They don't stimulate energy production. They don't activate the gut. They help quiet background noise so the body can shift into repair mode. These forms are generally better tolerated at night, especially for sensitive sleepers. What complicates this further is labeling. Supplements list a form, a dosage, and a vague promise. There's rarely guidance about timing. No explanation of whether a form belongs in the morning or at night. So people assume magnesium is interchangeable. One bottle replaces another. The routine stays the same, and the sleep problem continues. This isn't about good versus bad magnesium. It's about context. A form that feels helpful during the day can quietly sabotage sleep if taken at night. And a form that supports calm at night may feel underwhelming in the morning. Once you understand that magnesium works by signaling, not sedating, the confusion starts to clear. The goal isn't to take more. It's to stop sending mixed messages to the nervous system when it's trying to rest. When that message becomes consistent, the body often responds the way it was designed to. Even when the right form of magnesium is used, certain evening habits can quietly cancel its effect. This is where frustration sets in. People change the supplement, but keep the same routine. And the body doesn't respond to magnesium in isolation. It responds to the entire environment you create at night. One of the most common issues is competition. Calcium is the clearest example. Taken together in the evening, calcium and magnesium compete for absorption, and calcium usually wins. The magnesium never fully reaches the nervous system. It passes through underused. That's why taking magnesium alongside milk, yogurt, or calcium supplements at night often backfires. Alcohol creates a similar problem, even in small amounts. It increases magnesium loss through the kidneys and stimulates the nervous system later in the night. You may fall asleep faster, but sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented. The body never fully settles into recovery mode, and magnesium can't override that signal. Late, heavy meals add another layer. Digestion demands blood flow and nervous system attention. When the gut is still working hard, the brain stays partially alert. Magnesium works best when the system is calm, not when the body is still processing dinner. Medications matter too. Certain blood pressure drugs, acid reducers, and common prescriptions interfere with magnesium absorption or increase excretion. Taken at the same time in the evening, they can neutralize the very support magnesium is meant to provide. This isn't about stopping medications, it's about understanding spacing and timing. Even processed evening snacks play a role. Additives, phosphates, and refined sugars bind magnesium and reduce its availability. The nervous system ends up juggling conflicting signals when it should be simplifying. None of this requires a perfect routine. But at night, small adjustments matter more than people realize. When the environment is calm and supportive, magnesium can do its job. When it's not, even the best form struggles to work. This is usually the point where people give up on supplements and look for something stronger. When magnesium doesn't seem to work, the conclusion feels obvious. I need a pill. Something that shuts the brain off quickly. Something reliable. Something that doesn't require thinking about timing or routine. Sleeping pills seem to solve the problem, but they do it by creating a shortcut the body never asked for. They sedate the brain, but they don't restore the system. Sedation forces unconsciousness. Restoration requires the nervous system to move naturally into repair mode. Those two states are not the same, even if they look similar from the outside. Sleep medications work by dulling brain activity. They shut things down abruptly instead of allowing the normal nighttime shift to unfold. That's why people can feel knocked out and still wake up tired. The body never fully completes the repair cycles it depends on. The lights are off, but the systems aren't reset. One of the first things to suffer is REM sleep. This is the stage where the brain processes memory, emotion, and stress. When REM is shortened or disrupted, sleep feels empty. You wake up foggy. Focus takes longer. Emotions feel flatter or heavier than they should. Over time, that mental dullness gets blamed on age instead of the medication that created it. Morning fog becomes routine. Balance feels slightly off. Reaction time lags. Extra caffeine becomes a requirement, not a choice. That's not real rest. That's recovery debt. Magnesium works differently. It doesn't force sleep. It supports the conditions that allow sleep to unfold the way the body expects it to. It isn't a miracle, and it doesn't work overnight. But as a foundation, it helps the nervous system relax without hijacking natural sleep architecture. So, what does a smarter magnesium night routine actually look like? Once you understand why the mistake happens, the fix is simpler than most people expect. This isn't about adding more steps or chasing perfect sleep. It's about giving the body the right signal at the right time, then letting it do what it already knows how to do. Timing matters more than dosage. Magnesium works best when it's taken during the body's natural wind-down window, not right as your head hits the pillow. Earlier in the evening, when stimulation is already dropping, gives the nervous system time to respond gradually instead of being pushed into change. Think of it as easing the body into rest, not flipping a switch. Stomach conditions matter as well. For many people, magnesium is better tolerated when digestion is quiet. Heavy meals slow absorption and compete for attention. A light snack can work for sensitive stomachs, but large dinners tend to blunt the calming effect. The calmer the gut is, the clearer the signal becomes. Pairing is another piece that often gets missed. Magnesium doesn't do well with competition at night. Calcium, large amounts of protein, alcohol, and heavily processed snacks interfere with absorption or change how the nervous system responds. Spacing matters. What you take together can matter as much as what you take alone. Consistency matters more than quantity. A moderate amount taken regularly sends a clearer signal than chasing higher doses when sleep feels off. The nervous system responds to patterns. When the signal stays steady, the body learns to settle more easily over time. And this is important to understand. Magnesium doesn't work the same way for everyone. Magnesium is gentle, but it isn't universal. Some people need to move more carefully. Kidney conditions are at the top of that list. When kidney function is reduced, magnesium can accumulate instead of being cleared. That situation isn't common, but it matters. This is why anyone with known kidney disease shouldn't treat magnesium like a casual supplement. It belongs in a conversation with a doctor who understands your full picture. Medications matter as well. Certain blood pressure drugs, diuretics, acid-reducing medications, and antibiotics change how magnesium is absorbed or excreted. Taken together without guidance, they can reduce effectiveness or create imbalance. This doesn't mean magnesium is off the table. It means timing, spacing, and supervision matter more. Digestive conditions also change the equation. Chronic diarrhea, inflammatory bowel disorders, or long-standing gut sensitivity can all affect how magnesium behaves. Some forms are simply better tolerated than others. Starting low and paying attention to feedback isn't overcautious. It's intelligent. That leads to expectations. Improvement with magnesium is rarely dramatic at first. There's no overnight transformation. What people usually notice are small shifts. Falling asleep feels less forced. Waking during the night happens less often. Mornings feel calmer instead of abrupt. Muscles feel less tight. The body feels more predictable. These changes build quietly over weeks, not days. Magnesium doesn't fix sleep. It restores the conditions that allow sleep to work again. And when those conditions are in place consistently, the nervous system responds the way it was designed to. If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's not that magnesium is magic, and it's not that sleep problems mean something is broken. It's that the body responds to signals. When the signals are clear and consistent, the system works. When they're mixed or mistimed, even good intentions can backfire. For many people after 60, sleep doesn't disappear overnight. It slowly changes. It becomes lighter, more fragile, harder to trust. And when that happens, the instinct is to push harder. Stronger supplements, stronger pills, faster fixes. But real rest doesn't come from force. It comes from alignment. Magnesium, when used thoughtfully, supports that alignment. The right form, the right timing, a calmer evening environment, small adjustments that respect how the nervous system actually works at night. Nothing extreme, nothing complicated, just clearer signals and fewer obstacles. Improvement rarely announces itself loudly. It shows up quietly. Fewer early awakenings, less tension in the body, mornings that feel steadier instead of abrupt, sleep that feels more predictable, even if it isn't perfect. That's progress. And for most people, That's enough to change how the day feels. If this video helped you see your nightly routine differently, take a moment to let it settle. You don't need to change everything at once. One small adjustment is often enough to start shifting the pattern. And if you found this helpful, support the channel by giving it a like. Not for hype, but so this information reaches others who are quietly dealing with the same sleep frustrations. Subscribe if you want more clear, practical guidance about nutrition and habits that actually work with the body, not against it. Sleep isn't something to chase, it's something to allow. When the conditions are right, the body remembers how to rest.